OneDrive.
Okay.
So I think we're okay, Rob.
All right, well, I hope so.
Use another account.
Robin, you guys good?
Yeah, we're good.
Just, yeah.
All right. All right, good evening. This is the December 1st, 2021 Cottage Grove City Council meeting, which I'm calling to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, will the clerk please do the roll?
Councilmember Kambata,
Here.
Councilmember Dennis,
Here.
Councilmember Thiede,
Here.
Councilmember Olson,
I'm here.
Mayor Bailey.
Here. Next item on our agenda is open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that wants to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda. We did have a sign-up sheet out in the entryway, and as I'm looking at the sheet, all of them are regarding the Mississippi Dunes. So what we'll do is when we get to that point in the agenda, we'll allow, I'll give some feedback, and then we'll allow the public to speak at that particular point. So if there's anybody else that maybe didn't sign up that wants to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda, did I miss anybody in the audience? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and close open forum. We'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
We have a motion by Councilmember Dennis,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Kambata. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 6, presentations. We have none this evening. 7 is consent calendar. Is there anything that council would like to pull on consent?
I would like to pull G.
All right, Councilmember Thiede, G, and then I'm going to pull U just for comment. So is there anything else? All right, so what I'll do is if you're okay with this, Councilmember Thiede, I'll just mention what U is on our consent calendar, which is, matter of fact, the gentleman who we're going to be appointing tonight with this approval is had the opportunity to speak with Joseph Crone, who's in the back there. He was one of our council candidates that was applying for the job that Mr. Tony Kambata got and wants to get involved in the city. And we happen to have an opening, a recent opening on the Economic Development Authority, and that is something that's of a passion of his. And so I asked him if he'd like to join us, and he obliged. So with our vote this evening, we would be appointing him as one of our members of the EDA. So that was my comment there. And then, Councilmember Thiede, you had G, which is City Code Ordinance Amendment.
Yeah, so there's a couple of items in there. There's a few things that I'd like to be able to discuss more. So I'd like to pull that out of consent for a either a tabling or a separate vote.
Okay, all right. Any other comments on the, so at this point, I'll look for a motion to approve consent without G, which G would be a separate vote.
Move consent without G.
Okay, we have a motion to approve consent without G. Do I have a second? Okay, I don't have a second. Okay, so then there wouldn't be a polling of G for further discussion. So then I'll look for a motion to approve consent as it sits.
Motion to approve consent as it sits.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Olson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. So if you are here for anything that was on tonight's consent calendar, all of those items have been approved. Moving right along to 8, which is approved disbursements. 8A is pay the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
We have a motion by Councilmember Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Kambata. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearings, we do not have any this evening. 10 is bid awards. We do have one this evening, and Ryan Burfine, oh my goodness, is going to take us through that, which is the 2021 Pond Maintenance Project Bid Award.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yep, so here tonight to talk quickly about our bid award for the 2021 pond maintenance project. I'll mention right away, we're late in 2021. The reason it's still called that is we were originally going to do this in the summer, but based on the scope of work, it really made more sense to be a winter project, so we kept the name as it was, as we've been working on. But in case you're wondering why we're awarding something with that year so late in December. What this project is it's a pond up on Indian Boulevard, just north of Great Cloud Elementary. It's got just a large amount of sediment. It's kind of unique for us. A lot of our ponds are not in that bad of a shape. We take a little sediment out, we fix the riprap. This one has about 1.5 feet of sediment we have to take out of the entire pond. So it's very full, it's very shallow. We get lots of complaints from the local area neighbors. It gets a lot of algae, a lot of issues. So pretty major project that we're doing because it is just so much sediment removal. Doing that in the winter, which we've never done, but other cities have. Really made a lot more sense to reduce impacts in the area and just make it more economically feasible. And we did see that in our bid results. We got 12 bids actually, which is a really good amount of bids for a project like this. It's our first time, I said, doing a winter project, and it's really about sediment removal. There's not a lot of other work going on, and we saw that in the numbers. You can see our low bid was quite below the engineer's estimate. We had a very large range that incrementally stepped up to above the engineer's estimate. And we really saw just really good bidding, competitive bidding of that excavation and removal of that sediment. And that really drove that price down that we saw. We're very comfortable. It's a very low number. I see that from our engineer's estimate, but we are comfortable with it just because it is pretty straightforward work. They're going to go in, dig it out, and remove it and dispose of it. So with that, we are recommending tonight award of the project to Fitzgerald Excavating, and I'll stand for any questions.
Ryan, because, I'll just real quick, because of this bid, and maybe it's just this particular one, but this bid came back so low with us going with a winter project versus a summer. Is this something we might want to look at going forward?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this type of project, I think we would. When we do our other projects where we like fix the pipes, do the riprap, that's more summer work, but I think seeing how well this went, if we have this big sediment removal, I think it's something we would do going forward.
Yeah, because that's quite a significant, and I know there's a big range there, but that's significantly less than what we estimated, so. Yeah, Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. Ryan, just a quick question, and I know some of us will ask this of you from time to time. Is this a company we have a history with?
Councilmember Dennis and Mr. Mayor, this is our first time working with them ourselves, but they have done a lot of work with the city of Woodbury. Over the past probably 8 to 10 years, they do a lot of pond maintenance work. For them, it's just their first time submitting for Cottage Grove, but I did speak with the city of Woodbury staff, just knowing they have a history and they've had, I'd say, good results with them. So.
Okay, that gives us good confidence. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Any other questions, council? All right, not saying any more questions. Thank you, Ryan. We do have a motion up on the screen in front of us, if someone wants to make that motion.
I'll motion to adopt the resolution awarding the 2021 pond maintenance project to Fitzgerald Excavating for the total base bid amount of $109,140.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kambata, second by Councilmember Thiede. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our regular agenda. We have 2 items this evening. The first one is A, which is the property tax levy payable in 2022 and revising the 2021 budget and adopting the 2022 budget. So a few things there, and our finance director, Robin Rowland, will walk us through this. And just for the general public, before she gets started, council has been working on this, and maybe I'm stealing your thunder, since March of this year?
Actually, since January.
January, that's right. Actually, we did talk in January, we did, so almost a year.
I think this is what I want. Oh, okay.
There we go.
Well, good evening. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. We did indeed start talking about the 2022 budget at our strategic planning back in January. After that, we did a preliminary budget meeting, or I should say a workshop in April, where we talked about the preliminary numbers that we saw from the county and some of the other things and what the general guidance was from council as far as proceeding with preparing that budget. Then during the months of May and June, departments put together their proposals using historical data as well as the strategic planning guidelines that we were given. And then we had our annual budget workshops with the city council in July and August, where we finalized the numbers, balanced the budget, and came up with a preliminary levy proposal, which came before the council in September, actually September 1st. As you all know, once that preliminary levy is adopted, it cannot be increased, but it can be decreased. The budget that's being proposed tonight, along with the levy, has not changed since September 1st. And as such, once the preliminary levy was put together, then notices were sent out by the county. Those are formally known as truth in taxation notices. And those were mailed on November 12th to all residents or property owners within the city of Cottage Grove, as well as every other city in Washington County and across the state. Those notices talked about this meeting tonight, that comments would be taken at the meeting in consideration of the levy and the budget prior to any adoption of the levy or the budget by the city council. So the city property tax levy that is proposed for 2022 is a total of $18,339,000. That is 2.99% above for the general fund levy and an additional 1.27% for potential roadway maintenance debt that we might issue in 2022 based on the number that we have from the infrastructure bill, which was provided to the city. And we have a period of time to spend that, I believe, but we haven't seen any specifics on it. So council believed that it was a good idea to put some money in there in case we did need to issue debt in 2022. And so that's the additional 1.27%. So all told, it's a 4.26% increase in 2022 over 2021. The city's total tax capacity, however, increased by 6% between 2021 and 2022. That growth is mainly due to all the building that's going on, both commercial, industrial, retail, and residential. New construction has given us quite the boost in our growth of properties. And the reason I can say that is because the other number that the county gives us is the increase in the average value of the houses. And this year, an average house only increased by 1.4%. That's really small comparatively. I mean, we've had years where the average value of the property, like the individual residences, has gone up 5 and 6%. So that's quite different. A very small increase per household, but overall a growth of 6%. Our current tax capacity is $46.9 million. And as you can see, back in 2016, that was barely over 30 million. So quite the increase over the last 5 years, essentially. I would also tell you that because of this, the amount that we are levying divided by the total tax capacity, we came to a tax capacity rate or a tax rate of 37.15%. Or I should say just 37.15. That's compared to our 21 rate of 37.35. So very little change in our tax rate this year between the 2 years. And the tax rate for 2022 is the lowest that we've had since, I believe, 2017 or before. So really holding the tax levy flat at this point. Now, sometimes, I skipped a card. This is the actual levy and where the money is going to go. As I said, the increase to the general fund is approximately 2.99%, and then the debt levy, which is all of the debt that you see listed specifically on this page, that is an increase along with that additional amount for the future debt for the roadway projects. That's 1.27%. So overall, the total the total levy for 2022 is $18,339,000. We've done comparisons each year to other communities within Washington County. There are several things that we can look at to see how we compare to our neighbors. And again, if you wanted to look across the state, across the 7-county metro, you would be able to take a look at our number of per capita levy against any community, because it's the amount of levy divided by the population. So in Washington County this year, the highest on this list is for the city of Oak Park Heights. Their population is small, but their levy is large because they have a very large non-taxable base. The prison that is there and other state buildings that are not subject to property tax are what drives a lot of their levy and their need for money to provide the services there. Smaller numbers include the city of Cottage Grove, where our levy per capita is $472 for 2022. That's a very small increase. That's approximately, $7 for the difference in the levy between 2021 and 2022. You'll notice that the city of Lake Elmo took quite a jump. They had a project where they issued a significant amount of debt that had to come onto their tax rolls this year. Hence, their levy went from $5.2 million to almost $7.5 million. That's a big jump in a year's time, and it's reflected in the difference between their per capita levy between 2021 and 2022. This is but one metric that we can use. Yes, I used a word of a former administrator there. We also take a look at the individual properties. We follow these same 4 properties across all of the years. And as you can see, the flat tax rate and the change in valuation of these properties is what impacts the amount of city tax which they will be paying in 2022. Closest to the flat that I was referring to before would be property number 3, so the second one in the first column. You'll notice the increase in the property value there was less than 1%, and the increase in the property taxes is $2 for the year. Even the biggest jump on these 4 properties is still only a $44 difference per year, and that amounts to $3.67 a month. So I think we've done a really good job of holding the line, holding things where we needed to have them, and yet still providing a very robust budget for the coming year. Our general fund for 2022, the revenues equal the expenditures, therefore we call it a balanced budget. There's no drawdown necessary at this point from our fund balance. In other words, it's not heavy in the way of expenditures. We matched our revenues to our expenditures. Total budget is $20.6 million. When I look at revenues, obviously our property tax is our most significant form of revenue. 78% of our revenue budget is made up of property taxes. And as I've said before, licenses and permit revenues for 2022 are budgeted at 2020 actual levels. We expect 2022 to be a very, again, robust building year where a lot of our revenue is going to come from building permits and fees. That has a big impact on our revenue base at this time. Our largest expense, obviously, is personnel. 71% of our total general fund budget is in salaries and benefits. And in this salaries and benefits are the COLAs that you approved tonight, as well as increases to the benefits related to health insurance, dental insurance, and other required contributions that we make, both to Social Security, Medicare, and para. Those match the contributions that the employees make. This is our share of that. I would also mention that there's a pretty significant number for contractual services. Over the last 2 years, with the advent of COVID and the advent of online building permitting, we have taken a lot more in credit card payments. And that's great because the convenience factor to our customers is awesome. However, if you don't budget for the credit card fees, they'll bite you. And we didn't budget enough. So in 2022, we hopefully are budgeting enough to pay the 2% of our revenues to credit card fees that we are required to pay. Prior to 2020, we budgeted about $6,000 a year for credit card fees for the general fund. Right now, for 2021, we are well in excess of $160,000 in credit card fees. Now, there's corresponding revenue with that. I mean, it's great, but there is a cost that goes with it. What does Jennifer say? Sometimes you gotta spend money to make money. Other things that are included in the expenses for the general fund are additional staff positions. We've got a half of a person in there for the Parks Department. The other half of that person is in the Arena Fund. And then we have a GIS tech that we've budgeted for next year, which is shared between the general fund and the 4 enterprise funds. That GIS tech will help us bring those services in-house as part of our building permitting software and planning software, and it will make us a more efficient operation, and we won't have to rely necessarily on consulting firms or the county for our information. And then by department, you'll see we haven't changed much between 2021 and 2022. Public safety still takes up the majority of our general fund budget, and that's police and fire. The transfer out that's reflected here is the money that goes to the equipment replacement fund, and that is about $400,000 for 2022. In your memo, we also reflected the 2021 revised budget. We talked about the revenues and expenditures that we see happening now, and that revision to the 2021 budget is part of Resolution 2021-150, which we're going to ask you to approve tonight. It includes both the 2021 revised budget as well as the actual 2022 budget for the general fund, special revenue funds, and enterprise funds. And this is my favorite every year, because I'm looking at it and thinking I pay twice that for my cell phone bill. Anyway, your city taxes pay for the things that are shown on this slide. And for 2022, the average value of a home in Cottage Grove is $267,600. The annual city taxes on that house are $945, which breaks down to $78.75 per month, which is just slightly over what it was in 2021. Public safety takes up the biggest part of your monthly payment. That's $30.71. And the fire service is a little cheaper. They're down below at $6.39. Capital equipment, $1.30. Debt service, $13.11. Think about it. Think about what your cable bill is. Think about what your cell phone bill is. I saw my electric bill this morning. Think about what that looks like. This is a pretty big bargain, I think, and we've kept it pretty well in line for the last several years. So that's just my opinion, but I think the council has given us direction as to where we wanted to go, and I think staff has done what you've asked us to do. One last thing. There are 3 property tax relief programs through the state. The homestead credit refund, the special property tax refund, and the renter's refund. These are all property tax circuit breakers that go through the income tax process. So in April, when you file your income tax, you can also file the forms for these 3 particular programs. If people have questions about these programs, they can go to the Department of Revenue website, where they'll be able to see how that might affect them depending on their household income and the value or the increase in value of their property. I would also say, watch for your 2022 valuation notice. It usually comes in either January or March. They sometimes send it separately, sometimes send it with your property tax bill for the coming year. It's really important to look at that valuation notice to make sure you believe that the value of your house is accurately reflected by the notice that the county sends you, because you have a very short period of time to talk to the county and tell them, hey, I need you to look at this. And if you don't, your taxes for 2023 will be based on a valuation that you didn't do anything about if you wanted to do something. So be on the lookout for that. So what I would ask you to do this evening is to adopt Resolution 2021-149 for the final tax levy for 2022. And after that, I would ask you to pass Resolution 2021-150, which is revising the 2021 budget and establishing the 2022 budget. And obviously, if there are people who want to have comments, we need to do that tonight as well.
All right. So first of all, Robin, your staff, I see somebody sitting in the back there too that's helped through this process. Kudos managing the budgets for us, Jennifer and the rest of the team too. The one question or comment, I guess, would be good just to share. One of the things as you're commenting, our growth is obviously in the city right now is affecting what we're doing. A lot of it at the moment, though, and you correct me if I'm wrong, right now is a lot of it is at the moment is coming from permit revenue, because residential development doesn't actually come on the tax rolls for like a year later. Is that correct? 2 years. Yeah. So anything that was built this year, we really won't see the
Correct.
impact, if you will, because it's still being taxed at that lot level, if you will. Okay. And that kind of goes with anything depending on where it's located, housing or commercial and such too.
Absolutely. So that, basically, the moral of that story is, with all the 600 new houses this year, count on seeing those in 2023 and 2024.
Yep.
Those will be big growth years for us.
In the revenue side of things.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay. Sounds good. Council, any questions? Councilmember Olson?
Thank you, Robin. Would you please go back to the slide that shows all of the cities in Washington County?
Okay?
Thank you so much for that. First of all, my compliments to you, Kathy, your team, and the rest of the staff on once again delivering just an unbelievably positive outcome when it comes to the budget. When you look at these cities and you think about what you get in the city of Cottage Grove for what you pay, it's staggering. We're the second lowest in the entire county. That's pretty great. Now, something that you didn't mention that I'd like to ask is, does this data include the impacts of local government aid or LGA to these communities that get it?
Well, we don't get any.
Right, but there are some who do.
There are. This is strictly their levy. So if they get LGA, that's an additional source of revenue which is not taken into consideration here.
Good.
And that might drive down what their levy has to be.
So the reason I asked, of course, is because we don't get any. And over the years, the legislature has blessed us with a few $1,000s here and there in LGA. And if I go back to 2008, when the mayor became the mayor and I first sat on the city council, one of the things that we said at that time was, let's just not plan for it. Let's just not even think about it. If they give us $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, fantastic, but we're not going to factor it into our budget. So I want the public to understand that this budget is borne completely by the taxpayers in the city of Cottage Grove and the development that we've had, et cetera. There's no state money in here. So this is really us managing a budget in a vacuum, completely on our own, and we still are able to provide the services we provide at this level of cost, which is unbelievable. So again, I wanted to compliment you on that. The last thing I wanted to say is if you go back to your favorite slide now, I would appreciate that. Thank you. When you look at the monthly expense, so this is what it costs you for your city services if you live in the average household and you pay annual city taxes on that rate. But regardless of the value of your home, regardless of what you pay, $30.71 for any time you call 911, you're going to get a response and a fast response. Additionally, we run our own ambulance service here in the city of Cottage Grove. I don't know if people know that. That's not a common thing. So the fact that we run our own ambulance service means that the response times to your home are unbelievably fast. I'm not going to quote a number because I can only recall what it was a few years ago, and I know things change, but it's in the neighborhood of 4.5 to 5 minutes from the time you call to when somebody hits your front door and says, I'm here to help. So we've heard over the years numerous compliments from people who said, my loved one had a heart attack or they had a mental health episode or whatever the case might be, and the response was fast and it was high quality, and their loved one got the help they needed, which is exactly what you pay for when you pay your taxes. Public Works, $12.36 for your snow plow being done curb to curb so you can actually see the asphalt when we get 2 inches or more of snow in a couple hours. I mean, these guys are amazing. It's your clean water. It is all of your utilities. When you look at Park and Rec, $7.17. And how many parks do we have in the city, Zach? Is it 40-ish?
34,
Yeah.
yeah, 35.
Okay, so you have your choice of 35 parks you can go to and take your family and have a ball for $7.17. And oh, by the way, that includes, recreational opportunities like the golf course and the ice arena, et cetera. So I want people to clearly understand the value of living here in the city of Cottage Grove. And I also want them to understand the hard work and effort that goes into providing that value, particularly on the staff side. They work hard at it every day, and they deserve a huge pat on the back. Thank you.
Councilmember Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor. Also, my appreciation to you and our staff team for moving forward with the vision that we've shared to run a really good business on behalf of people. The numbers bear it out. And to follow Councilmember Olson, the level of quality and service that we get here in this community is just unbelievable. A lot of years ago, I grew up in St. Paul, and I would remember what it was like to crash a rear-wheel drive 1970 Oldsmobile Delta 88 through the windrow of snow going from one block to another. We don't deal with that here. And when you look at the cost factors, I know we've got some folks here in the room tonight that are from Minneapolis and St. Paul and other areas. What we deliver here is a value that is almost unmatched. It really is an incredible thing. And I think that's one of the many things that people really enjoy about our community. They've come to expect this from us, and we listen, and we make sure that we're delivering on the promise to make sure we're returning the value back to the people. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Thiede, you want to add something?
Yeah, so I kind of ditto on what's been said already and everything, but I do want to say, thanks a lot, because we do put a fair amount of pressure on you. You guys always come through shining and with smiling faces, and even though you probably frown a little bit, but even the time that I've been on council since like 2010, and just the whole organization and how, you used to hear a lot more about conflict this or conflict that or this, but I believe that we really have achieved a lot of excellence, and a lot has to do with the staff and the leadership and so forth that staff puts forward in terms of getting the trust and just the whole productivity and everything out of staff and working together, believing in each other. And so I just think it's fantastic, and I think that's a big part of us being able to provide the services that we do at a very productive cost. And as we've always said, that's value, right? So
Value.
excellent.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Kambata.
Being able to provide a high level of service at a comparatively low cost also provides value, and residents see that. Prospective homeowners who are looking for a community to move into are going to see that, and that's what is going to help Cottage Grove be successful in the long term. And it, as you can see, it's worked. I'm really, again, to echo what they've said, going to commend you guys, seeing no decrease in service levels while keeping the budget the same in spite of inflation. So that means, if you were to adjust for inflation, you actually did this for less money next year than you did in '21. And that's a high achievement. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
So the only last thing I'll say, and then I'll look for council to, we got two separate motions before us, but the only other thing I'll mention is, I'm sure we'll hear that actually, I've seen some of the tax statements, and I know what that has your values and all that kind of stuff on there with what our portion is from a city's perspective. So, but obviously, there's the school district in there, there's some special taxing districts, not too much, but special taxing areas, and then the county's in there. So a lot of times when people talk to us, they'll complain about the city, or, our taxes are so high or whatever, when it's really, there's a group of taxes, and we're one line on there, and we only control that one line. Now, and I do know on this one tax statement that we just got at our homes, there's a little clause in there that talks about the school district. And at the time, I don't think that last referendum was
It's not in there.
It's not in that number. So I just want to make sure that the public is aware that that piece of it is going to adjust up in just about every case, I would assume.
Right.
Whereas ours is staying exactly the way it is. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, because I do hear a lot about the fact, well, your taxes are so high, and it's like, well, look at the individual piece of the cities, comparatively speaking, to maybe the total picture. Though I'm not throwing the school district or anybody under the bus, it's not my intent, but my point is there's a bigger piece to all of this than just the city's portion, so.
I would make one final comment, and that is, when the county did their presentation to the Board of Commissioners for Washington County, their roughly 20-page PowerPoint reflected what taxing levels were in all different categories and places within the county. They listed them also out by city. And according to that county PowerPoint, 65% of the people in Cottage Grove will see no increase at all in their total taxes, not just the city, but over all of those. So 65%. And Those aren't my numbers this year, those are the counties.
Thank you. I was glad you brought that up because you had mentioned that to me after we had talked to you, saw the county slide, so fantastic. All right, so council, we have two separate motions. If somebody wants to do the first one, I would recommend to look at the packet because the numbers
Yeah,
are
so
in the
I
packet.
would adopt Resolution 2021-149, certifying the property tax levy payable in 2022.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Thiede, second by Councilmember Olson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I'll make the second motion to adopt Resolution 2021-150, revising the 2021 budget and adopting the 2022 budget.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis,
And I'll second.
second by Councilmember Kambata. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, Robin.
Thank you.
Kathy, the rest of the group, thank you for a great year of doing that. And what, about 30 or so days, we'll be back at it again? I should have said that, I suppose, but, all right. So next on our agenda this evening, on the regular agenda, is B, which is the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan. And so what we'll do is, I think we're going to start out with Emily is going to start us on this to give us some feedback, and then I believe you're going to turn over to Zach, is that correct?
Mayor,
I know
Council,
you're going
that
to
is
tag team.
correct.
All right.
Yes, we
So I'll
are.
let you get us started then, thank you.
All right, there we go. Again, good evening, Mayor, Council. Next item before you this evening is the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan. For most of you are familiar, the proposed site is located just south of 103rd Street, adjacent to, of course, the Mississippi River, as well as to the east, the DNR SNA area. I think it's important before we get into the details of the master plan that we take a look at a little bit of the site history. As you can see, this particular area was tilled in about, this was the oldest area we could come across, 1937. So the entirety of the site was essentially tilled fields up until around the early 1990s, when the property owner at the time did receive approval for and mass site graded to create a golf course, which most folks know, of course, the Mississippi Dunes golf course in the area. That golf course operated until about 2017, when it did in fact close and has remained vacant since that time. The current property owner did purchase the property sometime around 2019. Again, some additional specifics that we did look at on the site as we reviewed master plan potential for this area. Of course, the railroad tracks that do extend up the eastern edge of the parcel. What does that look like for restrictions when it comes to development? River navigation. We know the area adjacent to the Mississippi Dunes is a little bit shallower, sandy. It's my understanding there are some trees. I've not swam in it quite yet, but provide some limitations to the recreational activities that can happen in those waters. Of course, the Always Stop Bridge, what are the limitations there? PFAS that have been identified in the area, and what does that limit when it comes to potential for drilling new wells? Do we have utilities in the area to support potential development if those aren't options? The MSP flight path that does extend, or I should say it's frequent in the area. And then finally, the historic William Cohen House that is in the northwest corner of the site. We did have our city's historic consultant take a deep dive into that historic house and site to make sure that we're understanding any of the historic nature of the house and the site, and that we're enacting any protective measures as we move forward with looking at a master plan process. In addition, I think it's important that we take a look at the history of the land use of the site as well. The 2030 Comprehensive Plan did in fact, I'll go back just one step. Actually, when we worked through the reviewing the 2030 Comprehensive Plan in around 2011, we did amend the land use to be specific golf course, which we wanted to differentiate from park. Understanding that park will remain park, golf course does potentially have the to redevelop. So we wanted to make sure that we had that differentiation. So in the 2030 comprehensive plan, the golf course was guided as golf course, the surrounding area is guided as transition area. Around 2017, 2018, we started the talks for the 2040 comprehensive plan, which ultimately guided the golf course as transition area after multiple conversations with the property owner at the time, who had grand ideas anywhere from a campground to a concert venue. Some of you might have recalled those conversations. So the city said, we need to make sure that we take every precaution with some potential development of this site, and we want to enact some additional planning measures. Therefore, let's guide transition area requiring a master plan and take those extra efforts at such time there is the potential for some redevelopment of this particular.
But we're having trouble here. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Is that a little bit better? Okay. So again, in the 2040 comprehensive plan, the site was guided that transitional area planning, requiring that additional planning effort of the master plan, which you see before you this evening. So when the property owner came to us and said, I've got some ideas, what are the options for this property? And we said, well, hold on a minute. Let's take a deeper dive into this and start the master planning process. So as you can see, in March, the city did hire ISG as their consultant to work through putting together this master plan. And over the last 6 or 7 months, I know council, you've seen this master plan several times. Other commissions within the community have seen the plan. We've held an open house for the public, as well as had some online opportunities for comments to make sure that we've reviewed it entirely. And finally, the Planning Commission did review it. Their November 22nd Planning Commission meeting did recommend approval. So how did we get to where we are today? So we started back in May with our first, I'll call it, rendition of the master plan. As you can see, proposing low, medium, and high-density residential with limited park area along the river. Council took a look at this and said, "Go, we're hearing public comment. I think we need to pull back. Please go take a look, do some revising, and come back with something that's a little less intrusive." So we came back in October after working with our consultant, and again, hearing all of those comments, in October with a larger park area. Council said, we want to see 30 to 40 acres. So we did some work. The DNR proposed purchasing around 12 acres. So we reduced that density, and we enlarged that park area to mainly single-family housing and retaining that medium density just along that eastern edge, creating that buffer between that railroad and the single-family. Council reviewed again and said, I really think that we need to shrink this back just a little bit more. We're hearing what folks have to say. Let's reduce that density. So we went back, and the plan that you see before you this evening did again reduce that medium density and that density on the site overall, and we're maintaining just in the north corner of the property. So as we took a look at the master plan and land use and how did we come to the low density and the medium density, so we looked at the county road alignment. What does that look like in this upper corner, and how does that guide potential development in the area and any restrictions? The City Council strategic plan, wanting to provide a diversity of housing within the community. So let's give the opportunity for some low and medium density. And finally, it's important that we do mention that we do have to do a review of the utilities and the road networks in the area. Can they support what we are proposing? And as we look at this high-level master plan, we are confident that the road networks and the utilities that might be available would support the proposed. And with that, I am going to pass it along to Parks and Recreation Director Zach Doctor, who's going to give a little bit more detailed into the park portion of the plan.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to start by recalling that the Mississippi Dunes Park Master Plan process was a result of the city's approved Mississippi River Access Strategy Report from 2020. That report ranked Mississippi Dunes as the top priority for public acquisition. So prior to intervention of future development, The city clearly expressed its intent for a public park along the Mississippi River at this site, and as such hired, as Emily had mentioned, hired ISG as a landscape architect consultant to guide the master planning process, and that started in February of 2021. And after walking and studying the land in depth, there was 3 master plan concepts that are shown here before you that were reviewed by the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources as well as the City Council in May. As a standard practice, those initial concepts worked off the premise that the city would have the opportunity to acquire 10% land through the park dedication ordinance. So the initial concept showed about 20 acres of parkland there. As council may recall, the master planning team threw out many different ideas that the city could consider for recreational uses, camping, golfing, putt-putt courses, community gardens, outdoor fitness, playgrounds, anything, fire pits and camping were all a part of the potential options. So gave the council and commission lots of options to consider for recreational uses along the river. Additionally, the city launched a public engagement session from mid-September to mid-October, and it included an online platform as well as an open house at City Hall. Commissioners and the council have also been receiving public feedback in the form of emails, phone calls, letters, and public meeting open forum comments as well. During the process, all of this information that we heard, what we heard from the commission and the city council was pretty clear. More public land, less active recreation area, and more habitat preservation. So before you tonight is the Mississippi Dunes current master plan for a future municipal park. The total city park acreage is 37 acres. And then the city has also worked with the Minnesota DNR Scientific and Natural Area Division on acquiring 12 acres of preserved property that they feel is important to incorporate into their current SNA, which is currently at 238 acres, so it would bring their total DNR, the Great Cloud Dunes SNA, to 250 acres of nature preserved. Going back to the 37 acres of municipal park, this would be equivalent to the size of Oakwood or Highlands Park, community parks in Cottage Grove. It would be, about the third, along with Oakwood and Highlands, third, fourth largest park in Cottage Grove behind Hamlet Park, Woodridge Park, I'm sorry, the fourth largest behind Hamlet Park, Woodridge Park, and Kingston Park. Hamlet's about 158 acres, Woodridge is about 63 acres, Kingston is 57 acres. A good tool for maximizing public open space, in particular when trying to create quality environmental habitats, is to work with adjacent properties where possible. So some of the past models of success we've had in Cottage Grove include working with the school district where we acquire additional land for athletic fields, even woods and grasslands. We've worked with nonprofit partnerships like Shepherd's Farm or Land Trust and watershed district areas and DNR areas, so for waterways, open spaces, and forests. In the case of Mississippi Dunes, I think the adjacency to the Great Cloud Dunes SNA would make this this would make it the second largest contiguous public park and open space in Cottage Grove behind the Ravine Regional Park, which is 515 acres. So I think that's important to mention that, when you combine the two properties, it's a very large area of habitat preservation. Given the land size and unique opportunities along the river, the Mississippi Dunes will certainly be considered a community park for its municipal park components. As defined by the comprehensive plan, the community park serves the broadest audience of municipal park system, including all Cottage Grove residents, but also trying to draw residents from throughout the community, but also visitors as well. And it's been clear from City Council commissioners and concerned citizens that the attraction of this park needs to be its natural features. So we've been focusing less on the active recreational areas and more on those natural features. So as such, you'll see that the active area is really that about 6 to 7 acres, and then the rest of that is meant to be for preserved native habitat, natural habitat. So in that active recreational, you'll see things like the four-season building, interpretive signage, nature-based playground, picnic areas, natural and paved trails, outdoor classroom settings, and fishing, boating, water recreational activities as well. Although these more active recreational areas exist, we know that they provide a lot of value to the community, and are extremely important in creating a diverse audience that's going to use the park by ripping down barriers and making sure people have access to all the park amenities, and broadening our audience that'll use the park. It's important to note that this project has a lot of costs associated with it, and those costs come with land acquisition, land development costs for both the active and the passive areas, and then also, of course, construction costs and nature rehabilitation costs. So we're going to need partners, whether that comes from acquisition, resources, grants, or ecological partnerships. We know we need partnerships to produce the best possible park experience for our community, to help both the environment and the people we serve, and the people we serve not just for today, but for today, tomorrow, and 100 years from now, because our public parks are around forever. So we know that's an important investment, and we want partners to work with, so we'll be looking at not just this list of resources, but a multitude of other folks to help us build this park to the best of our ability.
And Mayor, Council, I'll finish by just reiterating the fact that this is a high-level view. The master plan is a high-level overlook. Next steps include an EAW, which has been completed by a potential developer, given their proposed project does in fact trigger that EAW. That is published in the EQB Monitor. Currently, it was published on Tuesday and will be out there for public comment until December 30th. You can also go to the city's homepage, right on that front page, and click the link, and it will give you the ability to review that document and provide comment. After that, also a comprehensive plan amendment. We need to bring that land use map up to par with a master plan, if you so choose to approve this evening, and then subsequent applications after that. So a lot more in the process as we move forward, but again, this evening, the master plan is before you for your review, so I will leave the recommendation. Staff is available for any additional questions you might have.
All right, so thank you. Does council have any questions for staff at this point? I know we've been kind of through this for a bit, so I appreciate both of you bringing that up. So I just want to, for the public, just real quick, one is we, obviously at the Planning Commission actually had the public hearing portion, which I did watch online, so or on TV, I should say. So I did get to see some of the public testimony in that. We did have some people that did sign up out in the entryway, and I'm just going to literally go down the list, and as I call your name, if you would just come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, that would be fantastic. Understand that we are limiting it to 3 minutes. We do have a timer. When the timer goes off, that's the time that you need to cease. So I hope you kind of plan yourself. If you don't use all of it, that's fine. But we do want to make sure that we get as much information from the public as possible, but we also understand that there are, other people that want to speak, and I've seen the list here, so we'll get through everybody as quickly as we can. We won't necessarily get any public or staff comments during these pieces of it, so if you have a question about something, our staff will obviously take some notes, and then we'll respond to those at the end. So at this point, we'll just go ahead and start with, is it Harlan? Harlan Hempstead?
Could I defer for a little bit and start kind of collecting my thoughts so I can be as concise as possible if somebody else would like to go?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so then next I've got Colleen O'Connor.
Good evening, Mayor Bailey, members of the council. Most of us know each other, Colleen O'Connor Toberman from Friends of the Mississippi River. I know that you'll be voting tonight to approve the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan over the objection of many of your constituents. I'd like to take this final opportunity to remind everyone that this outcome could have been very different. Of course, I do want to acknowledge that this planning process is resulting in a new riverfront park in Cottage Grove. It will improve public access to the river and provide some nice amenities. We'll have a boat launch, walking trails, scenic views. We certainly hope to see that space for wildlife habitat as well. But this park could have been bigger and better. It could have served more residents from throughout Cottage Grove, and it could have protected more acres of critical habitat, and that's what dozens of your residents have asked for. The community feedback during the master plan process has been nearly unanimous in this regard. Residents have been persistent in asking for more parkland. They have done so at Council, Parks Commission, and Planning Commission meetings for about 6 months. They have asked for more parkland at your open house, in letters, in survey responses, and at community events. I've yet to see a single resident come speak in favor of this project, actually. But this planning process seems to have been shaped from the beginning to accommodate Pulte's desired development. The landowner, developer, and city leaders appear to be the only parties who actually like this plan. All of the concepts presented to the community have only included a relatively small park and a lot of housing. Your constituents weren't ever given an opportunity to see and weigh different alternatives, understand the possibilities and limitations of each, and engage in a true decision-making process together. By the time the public was asked to give feedback, it appears that the city wasn't actually open to any substantial changes. This property was chosen as the city's top priority in your river access strategy report, as you know, and so it's hard to understand why the city would say this site is so important and yet not use its full authority to proactively designate more open space, incorporate public feedback into the planning process, or slow down the process to allow more time for negotiations with the property owner and putting together funds. Cities have the right to buy land at fair market value for public use, and indeed that's how most of our public infrastructure, from roads to schools to parks, is built. This outcome could have been different had the city been more actively involved in pursuing park acquisition from much earlier in the process. Had the city stepped forward years ago as a willing public landowner, we could have helped bring funds to the table, but those funds can only be used for projects that have an engaged public partner. Of course, you absolutely have the right to make the decision that you're making tonight, but it's just that, a choice. If you had chosen something different, as your citizens have repeatedly asked you to do, it could have been accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Sharon O'Boyle.
My name is Sharon O'Boyle. I live at 9300 Great Cloud Trail South, Great Cloud Island Township. And as you know, my grandma owned the land before it became Mississippi Dunes. As you also know, that land was not sold until until the land use would remain compatible with the environment and nature. That hasn't changed, but Cottage Grove has come to a crossroads. You're not required by law to accommodate what the property owner, the current property owner, wants. You must make a choice between protecting the environment, listening to your constituents and the surrounding communities, or making accommodations, again, for another housing development. The houses that you've already approved with housing developments are going for, they're being advertised on Nextdoor, that app or that community program, and they're going for $450,000 to $500,000 a house. Now that's not your typical homeowner in Cottage Grove. The priority needs to be the environment. The priority needs to be to keep the Mississippi Dunes land as a park, whether that be a combination of the city, the state, the county, a regional park, but that should be the priority, not just the priority of a housing development. And Great Cloud Island fought and stopped a housing development from going in on Great Cloud Island Township. We're much smaller than Cottage Grove. We don't have the resources that Cottage Grove has. St. Paul Park fought and stopped a housing development going in on open space. The railroad stepped in and helped out with that. So, I mean, you've got a choice to make. And the choice doesn't have to be to put a housing development in on a property that would connect the Great Cloud Island Dunes, the Great Cloud Island Regional Park and the SNA, the Great Cloud Dunes Scientific Natural Area. That's a lot higher priority than another housing development. And as far as cost, I think the cost to not do that is much higher than the cost of having a natural our open spaces, protecting what open spaces we have left. I know you have approved a plan for a 252 acre and given them an $8 million tax break. Seems to me if you can afford to give a tax break of $8 million, you should be able to afford
Okay.
the park
thank you.
space. You're welcome.
All right, I believe it's Sarah Wertz.
Hi, Sarah Wers, 8642 Grosse Pointe Avenue South here in Cottage Grove. Thank you. From your own comp plan, the comprehensive plan is intended to be general and flexible. Periodically, the city should undertake a formal review of the plan to determine if amendments are needed to address changing factors or events in the community. Regarding land use, periodic updates and amendments will be necessary to reflect changes in community goals and priorities. Goal 1, Policy 2.4. Land use designations must be balanced to meet projected growth demand plus some to allow for flexibility. Goal 2, to preserve and enhance the unique character of Cottage Grove. Policy 2.9. Define various character districts within the city. Strive to preserve and enhance this character in land use decisions. Policy 2.10, plan for enhanced access to the Mississippi River, recognizing its importance in the city's and region's environment. So a transitional planning area, according to the comp plan, needs additional planning efforts prior to establishing future land use designations. And in the same comp plan regarding Mississippi Dunes Golf Course, it states that it was recently sold with market interest in residential units. Shouldn't a master plan have been done before that for the area? Regarding housing, Policy 3.14, provide opportunities for alternative housing types and patterns. Achieve projects that are flexible and responsive to the site and surroundings, including the conservation and enhancement of areas having special historic, architectural, or cultural value. So in 10 years, from 2007 to 2017, there were 1,015 units, housing units permitted in Cottage Grove. And you already said over 600 in 2021 alone. And in 2020, there were 861. So in less than 2 years, there's over 1,400, where over 10 years, there was just over 1,000. So I understand growth is great, but that's a lot in a short time. And we're losing the character of Cottage Grove. Single-family homes comprise 81% of the homes in the community. That's 20% more than the metro. Do we need more single-family homes right now at this pace? Affordable housing, Met Council requirements. Cottage Grove must supply 568 new units of affordable housing. Where's that?
Thank you. Catherine Schwen?
Good evening, I'm Catherine Schwen. I live on 1,300 Gray Cloud Trail. And I'm here because I just wanted to talk about the traffic. And I saw that in the traffic impact study, there will be something like 3,900 trips per day of vehicles going through this general area. And I've lived here for 35 years, and I will say that there's a hill. I think some people call it Suicide Hill, some people call it Dead Man's Hill on 103rd Street. Anyway, it's a hill that you can go up fairly well. On the way down, you have to slow down a lot, and you have to stop at the bottom. And the stop sign is great. Not everybody stops, but It's a slow street to go down. And in the winter, not every day, but there are many days in the winter where it's slippery, even though Cottage Grove does a super job of keeping the streets open and plowing. There are many days every winter where it's very hard to get up the hill. And I have had, take 5 minutes to get up the hill because you're sliding one way and the other. Sometimes you can't even get up, not often, but if there's someone behind you, they have to wait for you too. There's seldom more than 2 cars on that hill if it's slippery, because the people at the bottom are waiting. And then coming down can be even worse. You have to go very slowly, you're sliding around off the hill, and if there's anyone ahead of you, you really have to wait till they get to the bottom before you can go. And it's hard to imagine how any of this would work with 4,000 vehicles going, especially a lot of them trying to move at once, like at rush hour and so on. So there I think, I'm not a engineer or anything, but I can't imagine how this is gonna work, how all these cars would even fit there. And, we live in a quiet neighborhood, we've been there, we moved out there because of that, and I'd like everything to stay quiet. I'd like to have the dunes stay the way they are. Dave called me when they decided to sell, because we kind of watched out for his land a little bit. He called me and said he wanted to let me know that he was going to be doing this. And I said, I was hoping it would stay the way it was, kind of kiddingly, because I knew it wouldn't be able to forever. He said, well, I'd like to do something like that, but I bought this as an investment. And I guess I've only got 10 seconds left, but I'll just say, I think we could do better, even if it's a smaller, bigger lots, smaller fewer amount of people there. And that's my time.
Well, you did your own timer there.
Excuse me, sorry, I can't. I'll get it.
No, that's okay.
Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know, is this your husband, is Bill?
Yes.
Bill, would you like to speak?
Is that allowed?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna do all of this, but she really wanted to put in her 2 bits. So. Bill Schwen, 10300 Gray Cloud Trail, across from the street from the house that Sharon used to live in, the stone house. As Kathy said, we've been there for a long, long time. We were there before the golf course was developed, and that was our playground. Winter and summer, it's just an amazing piece of property. The species, the wildlife, insects, plants, it's just an incredible area. And of course, that changed when the golf course was developed. Everything decreased wildlife-wise significantly, but it's been an amazing change over the last 3 years. Mother Nature has taken that back, and I understand Dave has to get some of his money back out of this investment, but when I looked at the plan and the EAW, it seems really dense. I mean, 50-foot lots, 60-foot lots, that's pretty tiny. And when I was going over the EAW and trying to understand what's going to happen, I was looking at the change in impervious surface, which goes from 3.9% of the property to 33.4% of the property. That's a huge increase in impervious land. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen during a 50 and 100-year rain event? Where's all this water going? And going through the EAW, it was not clear, but it looked like they were going to funnel some of this water into the many existing ponds in the northeast and northwest section of the property. Well, what I didn't see in there is that there's a 12-foot gradient from that northeast corner at the railroad track to the culvert under Gray Cloud Trail that dumps directly into my property and creates a stream that runs directly into the river. So any water that goes in any of the existing ponds, and it's 8.2 acres of wetlands up there. All of that is flowing every day down through the ponds and directly into the river. So I have my brother-in-law's a civil engineer, has worked with Pointe and some of the people in this room. He has a lot of experience, and he says, well, they're going to have to create ponds that are totally separated from this wetlands. And I thought, I'm looking at the plans, and I don't see where these ponds are. I mean, that's a huge area of development, a huge area of increased impervious surfaces. That's, I just want to make sure that everything is done to make sure that no increased water, polluted water, enters the Mississippi.
Okay, thank you, sir. Marie, I think it's Marie Sumstein? Sumstein? Sorry if I got your name wrong there.
Hi, my name is Marie Sumstein. I live in Cottage Grove. I've been in Cottage Grove it's going on 60 years. I came to Cottage Grove when I was still in school, when my parents moved out here from Montana. Cottage Grove has grown a lot in that time, but there are a lot of things that are unique about Cottage Grove, and one of them is the Mississippi River area. And one of my passions is historic preservation. That's why I'm on the Historic Preservation Committee. But that also includes preserving natural history and the wildlife and everything. And I feel like, having been here so long, I've heard people, ever since I can remember, they've wanted more Mississippi River access, better Mississippi River access, a better park down there, more preserved land down there. And I feel like that maybe this could at least be delayed. I know you're gonna put something there, but I would hope that it would be like a larger park area and maybe houses on bigger lots. I don't think that area is right for medium density for sure. It's too natural an area. And I would hope that you would at least pull back a little bit. You know, maybe give it another 2 weeks or something. You know, and I don't know if you'll do that or not, but I would hope you would at least do something like that, because that is one of the most unique features of Cottage Grove. Not every city is on the Mississippi River, and not every city has Mississippi dunes, the scientific area that's there. There aren't very many cities that have a scientific area like that. And this whole area kind of connects. And this is just so unique. It's so disappointing. I'm not saying that there should be no medium density in Cottage Grove, but I don't think, I would hope that that didn't go in that area at all. And the houses are more spread out with larger lots. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and the only other person that had signed up, Harlan, do you want to speak?
There's some out in the hallway.
Harlan, before you start, can some other folks who didn't get a chance to sign up speak?
Yeah, it's unless Harlan wants to just do it, or you still want to wait?
Want to wait? Sure.
Okay, that's fine. I was going to say if after him, if anybody else didn't sign up, we were going to let people speak.
I'll be quick. My name is Jennifer Nedry. I reside at 7764 Jasmine Avenue South. I've been to many meetings. I've heard the council. Thank you for all the work that you do, Mayor and Council. You've taken lots of opportunities to thank the staff who, the citizens of Cottage Grove pay their salaries. And I think they've done a great job. But I also really want to commend the citizens who have taken the time to invest in looking at this the right way, to try and come up with solutions, to try and come up with alternatives, to try and express what, if more people knew about this project, if more people had the opportunity from the standpoint of having the time and energy to invest in talking about what this natural area could be, I think that there would be more of a groundswell. Unfortunately, there's a lot of timing issues involved. There's a lot of realism about what can and can't be done. But I would hope that, as other folks have said, that this process could be slowed. That even having the EAW period correspond with the vote that's going to happen. I know it's not a done deal yet because we haven't heard the results of your vote yet, but I just wish that this could be slowed. The fact that in 2023-24, we're going to see a boom from money that we're getting now from houses, that means that we have time to really invest in this. And I also feel like, just lost my train of thought there, but I also feel like the Parks Commission, I believe, has tabled their recommendations. I believe that happened in a recent meeting. So those things all, to me, come together to say there are alternatives. I wish we would explore some of the alternatives. I wish that there was not a vote on the master plan, but I would implore that we vote no for now and explore other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, would you like to come speak? Just name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Mayor Bailey and council members. My name is Lisa Mueller. I live at N 5001 810th Street, across the Cheddar Curtain near Ellsworth, Wisconsin. At last week's Planning Commission meeting, I spoke about the importance of having a bold vision for our collective work in conserving and managing natural resources to include new parks, wildlife refuges, trails, and other public open spaces. I mentioned a project in northwest Minnesota that started with a more parochial vision of what was possible and blossomed into the creation of a new 25,000-acre national wildlife refuge. I also mentioned the tour that city officials were able to take of the 335-acre W.H. Holton Conservation Area near Elk River, Minnesota, that could serve as an impressive model for what Cottage Grove could do here at the former Mississippi Dunes property to create a regional destination waterfront park. I would share 2 additional examples of well-loved parks and open spaces. Central Park in New York City is the heart of Manhattan. An estimated 42 million visitors make their way to the park every year, making it one of the most visited tourist attractions in the world. Of these 42 million people, only about 14% are first-time visitors. In fact, around 70% of Central Park's visitors are local New Yorkers who come to the park on a regular basis to escape the clamor of the big city. Frederick Law Olmsted had a bold conservation vision, and visitors to the park continue to enjoy it 170 years later. Another very recent example of a conservation success story is in the Oro Valley in Arizona. With the help of many dedicated residents, the Conservation Fund will acquire and preserve the former Vistoso Golf Course to enhance the area's natural, cultural, and recreational resources. The Vistoso Golf Course ceased operations in 2018, leaving area residents to wonder what would become of the 208-acre property that weaves its way through a residential area called Rancho Vistoso. One potential fate for the property would have been further development into more homes and buildings. Sound familiar? However, many Oro Valley residents envision preserving this open space and turning it into a nature preserve with trails open to the community. These residents soon organized and rallied around the town's motto, "It's in our nature," to bring their vision to reality. As Colleen O'Connor Toberman noted in her remarks, hundreds of local residents have come forward to Parks Commission meetings, Planning Commission meetings, and City Council meetings to express their dissatisfaction with the Pointe proposal. Yet, after months of appeals to city leadership, many of these conservation champions have given up because they see the city's endorsement of this miserable, short-sighted development plan as a foregone conclusion. I hope that you will give your constituents a reason to believe otherwise. I ask that you defer to the vote on the master plan at least until the Parks Commission has an opportunity to provide guidance and feedback. I also offer my willingness to work with the city and partners to secure this full parcel for conservation. The proposed park is a token park, failing to meet, I'm almost done, this is the last sentence, failing to meet the needs of the community as it barely meets the mark for parkland dedication credits. Please let go of this short-sighted proposal and cast a bold vision for the future of Mississippi Dunes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam Grams. I live at 10655 Great Cloud Trail South. Mayor and City Council, I guess my question is with the master plan and how the density ended up where it's at, right? I mean, I understand that the current zoning is R1, and that's what all the houses are around there are minimum 2 acres lots there. And so when you look at this master plan and just the amount, what is it, R3 or R4, I understand that the plan is a transitional zoning there, but how does it go from the R1 zone all the way to this higher density? I think that's a huge miss. I'd like to know what guidance were you given to get to that decision? Who was making those decisions on, hey, we want this many houses there? Why not go with what already existed there? Or even just bump it up a little bit more, not to impact the residents that live there. I want to echo all the concerns that everybody had here tonight with where's this stormwater going? Where's the rainwater going? What is the impact to the environment? And this, with the environmental assessment worksheet, the impact with the driving there and just this area, and what is this going to do to the people that live there already, especially with this floodwater. And I guess going back to my main point is, how do you go from R1 to this density in this area? It doesn't make sense, and I want to know where the guidance was around that. Who were the people that said, hey, this is what we need? Because if you were listening to the residents, I wasn't around for the 2030 plan, 2020 plan, whatever. I'm not sure if people were talking about it then, but what I've heard in the last 6 months was, we don't want this much housing around there. And so that's all I have to say, so thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, yes.
Dick Pointe, I live in Gray Cloud Township, so you're probably not really interested in hearing from me, but I was gonna talk, but I used to live right over in that area over there. My property bordered these Dunes property. And I look at it like this is, you can put houses anywhere. I mean, you got all kinds of different kinds of roads to put houses, but you can't get a river anywhere. That's one of the last areas you have to preserve is river frontage, other than the lower island, whatever becomes of that. But I just look at it down there, I look at it as, that'd make a perfect spot to put housing like you have down on Kingsborough Trail. That's nice. I think what you should do is, this guy bought this on speculation, no doubt. Piggyback on what the last guy said, 1 house per 3 acres. I think the council should listen to their constituents, make the guy live with what the zoning was when he bought it, the 1 house per 3, and I realize he's got the right to do certain things with his property, but try and make as much park property as you can out of it. Like I say, you can put houses anywhere, but that's the only river you got. And like I say, and 30 acres for a park, I got 10 acres in Gray Cloud. I put me and my 2 neighbors together, and that's 30 acres, and I look at that and as a city destination park in the river, not much, in reality. Like I say, take a look at Kingsborough. I think if you made like Kingsborough, it'd eliminate traffic problems, eliminate pollution problems, eliminate runoff problems. I think it'd be much cheaper for the city. You can get some real expensive houses down there, very low problems. Anyway, I think I just say, it's the only river you got, you can put houses anywhere, and I'd say, listen to your residents. I haven't heard one resident come up and say, this is great. So, but anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right. Harlan, do you want to come now?
Just started my timer. My name is Harlan Heemster. I just retired after a 25-year career with Minnesota DNR, and before that I worked as a newspaper reporter and editor. Newspaper reporters ask questions, lots of them. That's what I'm here to do tonight. Questions that not only should go to the city council, but to all the members of this community, because it affects you. First question, what's a rush? This proposal is only a few months old, yet, it's like suddenly the barn is burning down. We got to get this done. We're not going to stop to do due diligence. We're not going to stop to figure this out to make sure it's the best deal for the citizens of Cottage Grove. No, what's a rush? Come on, slow it down. You know better. Second question. Whose interests are being served by this? Whose interests? As far as I can tell, the only interests that are being served by this are not the hardworking, tax-paying citizens of Cottage Grove. It's a couple of speculators who bought this zoned rural or recreational open space and now want to make $1 million. And Pulte Homes, in its most recent quarterly reportings, had revenues of $3.3 billion, up 18%, and they're shoveling it back in to buy their own stock. Next question. Who pays for this rushed-up job? Who pays? I'll tell you, it's you folks. It's the citizens of Cottage Grove. It's also the citizens of St. Paul Park like I am, because taxes will go up. I have in my career looked at numerous studies indicating that residential developments like this often do not pay for themselves. When you add in all the costs of public safety, public works, and the big one of all, public education, you know what you wind up with? Higher taxes. Look around. The communities that are developing rapidly in the 7-county metro region, are their taxes going down? No, they're going up. You will pay for these speculators and pulte homes to get rich. Next question is anybody listening? You've heard time and time again from your own citizens that they don't want this at this scale. They want you to step back, take some more time to do it right, because you only have one chance to do it right. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The incredible values, resource values of this. You don't have anything like this in Cottage Grove elsewhere. You don't have anything like this in South Washington County or in the South Metro as far as unprotected land. Are you listening? You know, on the city's webpage, it says, we want to hear from you. You know, so then people speak up and you blow them off. You know what that does? You know what you're doing there is you are fueling the anti-government, the lack of confidence and faith in public government that is at record levels in this country, in this region, and you are contributing it to that decline in public confidence in government, which is terrible. Are you proud of that? You should be ashamed. Next question. Okay, where's the leadership on this? You know, where's the leadership? Leaders show some vision. They show some innovation. You know, they don't just go for second best, a second-rate development, which this is. I've seen plenty of developments in my 25 years. You know, final question: what's right? You know what's right to do here is to listen to your citizens, slow this down, take some time to do it right, to get it right, improve the conservation values of this, do it right.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, sir, I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder. My name is Jessica Fisher. I reside at 8490 Grafton Avenue South here in Cottage Grove. I'm a citizen of Cottage Grove, obviously. My business is here. I raise my children here. I would just like to stand up here in support of our city and all of the work they've done on this master plan. This is a willing buyer and a willing seller selling a parcel of land. I'm also a real estate agent. This is my career. He bought this as an investment property. This property was foreclosed upon. It was listed multiple times. Nobody bought it. The city has stepped in, zoned it transitional, so that they could be a big part of the planning of what happens with this parcel. And they're doing a tremendous job. And I just wanted to say that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so for staff, I didn't know if you wanted to, I know there was some questions in there, some are more general nature, and I even took a few notes myself for things that I can speak to, but which of you would like to start? Jennifer?
Mayor and Council, I think we'll start with the city attorney. She can talk about some of the property owning rights and some of the information about timing, and then we can maybe go to Public Works to talk about stormwater and traffic and safety.
Perfect, thank you. Corey?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the council, I feel like some of the message that we've been saying over the last 6 months is finally sinking in, because I heard Friends of the Mississippi say, you have to buy the property for fair market value. That's the first time they've said that and acknowledged that. So I appreciate that my voice is actually heard sometimes. So yes, the private, absolutely correct, as the last public speaker said. This is a private land sale, and they have rights to the property. The city certainly can impose its ordinance for the 10% of the park dedication, which that we're under state law and under our own zoning ordinance, we are entitled to because of the development. And if we want more than that, you're doing the right thing and trying to find funding sources for that. And so that's the appropriate way to do it. It's the only way to do it under state law, under the Constitution. And so I applaud you for following that process and for the residents finally hearing that that is the only way to do it. The second thing is everybody keeps asking is what's the rush? The state legislature has imposed a rush on all planning applications. This is not something the city council can sit on. You have an obligation to act on it under the 60-day rule. And so that's what you're doing. Could you delay it a day, or a week or two? Possibly. I'm not sure what more information you need to make your decision, and you have to have a reason for delaying the decision. But the state legislature has imposed deadlines on you to make these decisions, these land use decisions. You don't get to just sit on them for as long as you want. So those are the only two things that I felt like I needed to clarify.
Thank you, Corey. Ryan, do you want to talk about, that was one of the notes I heard comments about the concern on stormwater?
Thank you, Mr.
And
Mayor,
traffic,
members of the council. Yep, so I'll talk about stormwater first. I did talk about this at the planning commission, so some of the residents may have heard me speak on it. Stormwater is by far one of the most regulated components of a development. The EAW, the master plan, our higher level, the EAW certainly talks about stormwater. It doesn't get into the stormwater design. That's a development, aspect through a preliminary plat, final plat, things like that. The state has regulations, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the watershed has regulations, and the city has regulations. And the local regulations that we have in the watershed are actually above and beyond what the state requires as a minimum. The rate, when you think about flooding, how much water is coming off the property, we require a reduction in that. So whatever water leaves today, it has to be less water from both the actual rate and just the amount, the sheer amount of water. That's why you hear a lot about infiltration basins. The development like this will have infiltration basins to actually let the water go back into the groundwater, which is really our goal in the watershed. And we look at every part of the project. There was a mention of the pipe under Great Cloud Trail. We make sure every area where water can leave, it doesn't go up. We're not moving water from here to here. We look at every component through a very detailed model to ensure that. So it's something, like I said, we'll look at, and the watershed also reviews as well. So I can assure council, residents, staff that that's a very important part of the project. And then the quality as well. When you think about phosphorus, things that cause algae in the river, that has to be reduced as well. So it's not just the flooding, it's the environmental aspect as well. From a traffic standpoint, the EAW, which of course isn't on tonight, but the EAW is out there for folks to begin reviewing. It does look at that number of worst case scenario, right? The EAW is always going to look at your highest end. It does discuss, over 3,000 trips a day. That's certainly in there. And a roadway like this, a rural roadway, let's not think about the hill, but just the roadway, does handle that. When you think about Hadley Avenue going up through Thompson Grove has 2.5 times that amount of traffic, in a very urban residential neighborhood. Great Cloud Trail is not something, especially as you go up the hill, that you're going to have direct access to going up 103rd Street and as you go down 100th Street. And then in terms of the safety of the hill, I will say it's a priority spot for us. That Route 13, that's the first place they go. We put a lot of salt on that hill to try and be as good as we can. But one thing, traffic actually increases the effectiveness of salt. Maybe seems counterintuitive, but when you look at 80th Street and how good 80th Street or Jamaica looks, we put the same amount of salt there as we do on Great Cloud Trail on the hill. You need traffic to activate it. We talk about a lot up on 65th Street. Actually, the more cars you have, you need that to activate the salt. We have new technologies to help with that, but so actually when you think about how slippery the hill is, the more traffic, actually the salt will work better. So that's a big part of it. The bridge was brought up. That's certainly something that'll be reviewed. We have the stop signs. We will look at other measures to, I think, enhance visibility with that, different flashing, activated things and such for that stop sign, but it can physically handle the traffic. It's basically just a two-way stop intersection, and it can handle that traffic. I think that was all of the questions that I saw, but if council has any further questions.
Do you want to do it now or after?
I can do it now.
Okay, Councilmember Thiede.
Just a question on the hill, and with the changes that we see going in kind of along that whole area.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to reduce the slope of the hill to some extent?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thiede, long-term, definitely, that is a plan with the county. They have their Southwest Arterial Study. They do propose to cut that back pretty significantly, which is a big project. With this project, there would be some redoing of that road. You got utilities down there. We'll look and see, is there any smaller changes, things that are within the scope of this project to improve. The long-term vision, though, with the county is to reduce that grade, bring the hill back, and then have, adequate clearance under the bridge.
I Right, because I think the bridge is due to, long-term due to change in that study also, right?
Correct, yep.
Okay. Mr. Kambata.
Ryan, this might be applicable to you. If not, maybe Zach might have to step up and answer these for me. Is a master plan required for this parcel to be rezoned in for any type of use? Because it's currently transitional, which means anybody who wants to come and redevelop this in any capacity would need a master plan. Is that correct?
And I do know those answers, it is correct, but it's not technically under my purview if Emily wants to answer, but
Well,
that is correct, so.
I'm going to be asking some questions for the thousands of people who did not come to
Sounds
object
good.
today.
Yep.
So maybe if Emily wants to get up there, I'll just run through these quick. What is the approximate annual budget for maintenance and operations for Hamlet Park? And what is the approximate acreage? That's a Zach question. That's a Zach question. The reason I'm asking this is because that would be the next largest park in size if the city were to acquire this entire parcel. Is that correct, Zach?
Hamlet Park is our largest park at about 158 acres. I can't quantify off the top of my head what resources get allocated towards that park, but our park maintenance operation budget's about $1.5 million
For the whole city?
for the whole city.
And this park is the largest park in that city?
This park is the largest park, yeah, so about 150.
So it'd be fair to say that this park consumes the largest amount of that budget?
Hamlet Park is 158 acres. The next largest is Woodridge Park, which is 63 acres, so less than half.
Councilmember Kambata, the one thing I will just jump in though, because what Zach was talking about is maintenance, but I would also comment that we just spent $13 or $14 million on Hamlet Park for some upgrades, additional ball fields. It might even be north of that. I just know that we're finishing up on it. We're not even quite done yet, but there's additional money and revenue that was there. So I just want to make sure there's a budget piece to it, which I think that's kind of what you're asking about, but there's also the, what do you do, put in it? What do you use it for? And I don't think anybody's advocating for, ball fields down here or anything like that, but I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there, so sorry.
So as a principle of real estate, what is the next best alternative to this option? So if it were a park, I'm curious, what would the annual obligation of the city be? Has anyone asked that? Has FMR quantified that? Are the taxpayers okay with that? Those questions have not been asked. Zoning question, why is it that R1 has a minimum lot size and high density doesn't? Could it be because R1 is on well and septic and code requires a minimum spacing between those systems?
Mayor Bailey, Council, that is a correct assumption. Yeah.
And so wouldn't it stand to reason that in order to justify bringing in city infrastructure, you need to connect to more dwelling units in order to meet the needs, the economy of scale for running a system like that?
Mayor, Council, that is the intent of the zoning districts, yes.
Is that what guides the difference in density when we look at redeveloping a property?
Yes.
Thank you.
To a point, yeah.
Was that it for your questions then?
For now.
Okay. Council, any other questions at the moment for staff? Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, for our attorney, Corey, when you have a land sale like this, this is a private contract. Can you please inform everyone here what our local government's role would be in involving ourselves into a private contract?
Your Honor, members of the council, and Councilmember Dennis, the city, to put it simply, doesn't have a role. It's a private contract. We are not in privity in that contract. We're not a party to it. And usually in a purchase agreement, there are some contingencies involved, and the buyer will want to make sure that they can use the land. They call them entitlements. So they basically get all their planning applications approved before they close. That's where the city gets involved. When a buyer comes to the city and says, I want to use the land this way, here's my idea, here's my application. That's when we get to have our input and our say, and we apply our rules. But prior to that, we have no say.
Okay, thank you. And I do know, by virtue of the work that we do here, on the things that we actually do recruit for, right? Whether it be, council staff, economic development authority, et cetera, we don't recruit for residential housing. This is not, we don't have any say in this, any desire. These are all things which are done as a private deal, which we've heard, we've talked about this a lot. We've tried to get that information out there respectfully for people, and we've talked about it over and over and over again. We live in America in a capitalist free market society. That's what we have. That's the nature of our country. And so when we look at these things, whether they play out on a large national scale or something here at home, there is only so much we can do. And so in the circumstance here, we're not recruiting for, and as our attorney just stated, we do not have a role in a private contract. From my perspective, the work that's been done on the master plan really was the city's attempt to try to negotiate or receive the highest and best outcome for the people of our city, to ensure that we had an opportunity down there and not just a typical cookie cutter development. So I think those are just important things for people to keep in the back of their mind and think about a little bit, because that's how it works, folks. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Olson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. When you and I were much younger, the population of the city of Cottage Grove was actually greater than that of the city of Woodbury. We had about 12,300 residents, and the city of Woodbury had, far less than that. And the only reason I know that is because A, I've lived here for a really long time, and B, the boundaries for the school district forced me to go to Woodbury schools for a short time. So on those bus trips, I got to memorize those signs. When you look at our community today, we have 40,000 people, approximately, a little bit less. Woodbury's got about 80,000 people. So things change, and sometimes they change rather quickly. The fact of the matter is, the house that I live in, that I built, I didn't build it myself, but had it built, used to be a gravel pit when I was a kid. We both lived over on Hallmark and Hamlet, and Hamlet Park was about half the size it is now. So again, things change, and one of the comments that continues to get made is that as public servants, we're not listening to our constituents, which is such a crock, I can hardly stand it. And I've commented on it before, but I'm going to say it again. I actually live here. I live in this town. The people making those comments don't. I go to the grocery store, I get my hair cut, what's left of it. I buy my shoes and pretty much everything else. I'm very available and very well known. A lot of people know me. A lot of people know the rest of the council as well. And they absolutely share their thoughts and concerns, and pats on the back, frankly, sometimes too. I answer every email very quickly. Any of you who've sent me an email know that. I've been very open to discussion with people and respond to phone calls, et cetera, which the rest of the council does as well. It's one of those things that we take very seriously, that we understand is the nature of the beast. There are far more people who are in favor of a given project, generally, than are against it. The ones we see in the council chambers are the ones who are against it, because they're fired up and they want to tell us about it. And you know what? That's democracy. We're totally okay with it. Even sometimes when they don't tell the truth, which many comments over the last number of months have demonstrated, because it's misinformation. It's just not true. And our staff has refuted it. Our city attorney has refuted it. We here at the council dais have refuted it. But, people hear what they want to hear. That's okay. But I also know the number of people that I interact with on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, people who are part of the civic organizations I belong to, people who are my neighbors and my friends for 40, 50 years, who tell us, we are so excited about finally getting a park on the river. We're so excited. And then, of course, you have the added element of, at some point, there will be a park on the island, a large park, a really big park. Lebanon Hills, which somebody in this room actually commented on a few meetings ago, is 1,869 acres. That's a big old park, and it's a beautiful park. And we're gonna have an amenity like that in Cottage Grove for all of our residents and the surrounding communities to use at some point. Now, is it currently in the CIP? It is not for the county, but there are often projects that are not in the CIP for the 5-year outlook that suddenly magically make it into the CIP because they become a priority due to other factors. One of which, by the way, is the Southwest Arterial Study that our city engineer just mentioned, which would very much alleviate any traffic concerns from that part of the community. It's something that we deemed important, that we partnered with our friends at the county on, that we've shared on several different occasions, is something that we need to move up in the CIP, and now suddenly it's on everybody's radar. And that happens all the time, because we live in a dynamic world. Things change. Priorities change as a result of those things. So here's the bottom line. We followed the law implicitly with respect to the master planning process. Had we not, our city attorney would have definitely made it clear that we were not on the right path. We've done our due diligence. We've listened for months and months and months to all of the comments that we received, not just here in the council chambers, not just at open houses, not just at workshops, but in our grocery stores. And when we go to night 2 night parties, and when I go to my Lions meeting every month, and my Beyond the Yellow Ribbon meeting every month, and all of the other civic organizations that we belong to. We listen to those comments too. And what we try to do is take all of the facts and the data, dispassionately, without emotion, put them in front of us, and ask the question, do the facts and data support a decision? And once we have that answer, we will vote. Tonight, we're gonna vote on the master plan. The facts, the data, the EAW, all of the work that's gone into this process for months and months and months support the fact that the master planning process has been followed to the letter of the law. We've done nothing nefarious. We haven't done anything behind closed doors. And the reality of the situation is, there certainly are some people who are going to be disappointed in the decision that we make, whichever way we go. That is always the case. We will never please 100% of the people, 100% of the time. It's a risk of the position. But as the public speaker who spoke last, Ms. Fisher, said, this property was available for purchase for a good long time. And any environmental group or anybody who was interested in parkland for that property had all the ability in the world to snap it up. And we would be working with those folks right now on helping them to achieve whatever vision it is that they had for the land that they owned, because they would have the rights to do that. Dave Gustafson took the risk, bought the property. That comes with rights as well, as our city attorney so nicely pointed out earlier tonight and on several occasions prior to this evening. Therefore, we have to recognize his rights, and we have to work within the confines of the law as it relates to the rights that he has as a property owner. I will tell you that I have been on several Zoom calls and met with Friends of the Mississippi personnel on numerous occasions over the last 6 to 8 months. And on more than one occasion, I've said, where's the money? If you want to partner with us on this, you got to bring something to the table. We've yet to see a dime. So it's easy to spend my money as a taxpayer who lives here in the city of Cottage Grove when you don't live here. But as a taxpayer who lives here in the city of Cottage Grove, This body, all of whom live here, are going to be very, very careful when it comes to the decisions we make and the financial repercussions thereof, because that's our job. Thank you.
A couple things I just wanted to mention. Did you have something you want to add, or?
I have some closing statements, but nothing that I need to add now.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to make a couple comments, and I'll turn it over to see if you have. And a little bit of it piggybacks a little bit on what Councilmember Olson mentioned. You actually mentioned about the arterial road. I guess the main thing, just to remind everybody out there, especially if you're not aware of this, over the last couple of years, the county has been looking at access to the island all the way to Highway 61. That access does mean there's going to be new bridges, there's going to be a new roadway, a widening of roadway. Matter of fact, part of the planning process that was in the early discussion phases was they were literally going to cut across the golf course to build the road that's going to eventually go to the island. So the decision by this council was we would prefer it to stay on its current alignment, so to speak, is what we directed the county to do as part of their planning process. But just for those that are down in the Gray Cloud Island area, whether it's a township or the city of Cottage Grove, the fact is I'm being honest with you. Things are going to change. Put aside what's going to happen on the Mississippi Dunes property and what the decision is there. The island is going to change. There's going to be a new road that's going down there. I would be willing to bet you, and Councilmember Olson brought this up too, about things kind of move up on the planning process. We know there is a significant landowner on the island that wants to move to development. And part of that, though, is we have a plan and a discussion in our comp plan that says that we want a significant park on that island. Well, part of this deals with the county, and so we're having conversation with the county to talk about how do we master plan this new park that's going to be on the island. Where is it going to be on the island? What parts are important? Which ones, maybe which parts of the island are not, as we're looking forward in that. When I first came on the council, and frankly, when I was a little kid, there was nothing down there. I used to go fishing on the same bridge that's still down there. I used to go fishing down there all the time because I lived on Hamlet. There was nothing to the south of where I lived on what was the dead end at the time. They've even expanded on Hamlet there. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is keenly aware that things are changing and things are going to change down there on the island. There was a comment about single family with regards to, all these single family homes, do we need more? And then there were some numbers that were thrown out there about what the level of, I think this year we're talking about 600. I wasn't sure that we actually did 800 in that number, so I'm not sure where that number came from, but. Okay, well, all I know is I'm not aware of the 800, but I know that we did have, we're at 600. I'm not sure where we're at right at the moment. But this is the other thing I want the public to be keenly aware. Two things. One is we as a city are required as part of the Met Council, just throwing this out there, that we will grow at a certain level, meaning we will provide housing options as every other city that's in the Twin Cities is also required to do. And some years, we don't hit that number. Some years, we don't have any growth, which are those down years. That might have been what was referenced. Other years, it goes up. When you look at it, though, it's all pretty even across the board. So I just wanted to mention that. Regarding affordable housing, one of the challenges that we have in Cottage Grove is early on, before we had some of this development, is predominantly everything on the west side of Highway 61 used to be deemed affordable, or maybe still is deemed affordable based on the current standards. So there was always a belief that we needed more higher valued homes and other options. Well, we talked about it as life cycle housing, which of course gave opportunities for seniors that wanted to move into senior living facilities, other care options. At the same time, there are other people. My kids, a couple of my kids still live here in Cottage Grove. One just built a house recently, another one bought an existing home. And I obviously still live here. And the fact is we also have a lot of people that want apartments. We're hearing it quite regularly. Matter of fact, but just literally was told that by the developer of the Grove 80 apartments, they're basically 100% leased already and asking what they can do, where can we go next? So whether it comes to, you know, having a mixture of single family, we are as a city trying to do a mixture of single family and higher density. Not saying we're doing high density down here, because matter of fact, the message that we delivered was no, we didn't want it down there. But I also wanted to make sure that we're getting beat up about bringing apartments into Cottage Grove. So again, Councilmember Burleson mentioned it very succinctly, we're not gonna make everybody happy no matter what we do. The other thing I wanted to bring up, that I was scribbling some notes down here, is I know there's been some reference to the development that was being proposed in St. Paul Park. I want to be very clear for those that are using that as a win, that development was stopped, to realize that that property right now could be a year from now or 2 years from now, a rail yard. Okay? So they said that they stopped this housing development from going into St. Paul Park, and they turned around and sold it to the railroad. And I just talked to the mayor of St. Paul Park a couple weeks ago, and they expect to hear something from the rail company in the very near future here, early next year, where there could be an actual marshaling yard down there right near the island. So when you look at that and you say, what do you want? I don't want that. Matter of fact, I'll be frank with you, our discussion was, they asked us about putting another road in to go from our 95th Street all the way down to service this area. And we said, no, we do not want truck traffic going through our neighborhoods down in that area. So I just want everybody to be very careful with what you hope to get or what is being told to you about what's a win versus a loss. Because I'll tell you, I would prefer to have a park on a river, living in, or having people live in a home down there, to be living next to a rail yard. That's for me. And then last thing, there was a reference that was made earlier about if the city had, I think the number was $8 million from in taxes to give to a developer. In this case, I think they were talking about North Pointe. That is not what we're doing. What we're doing is called tax increment financing. And tax increment financing is where the developer is building the infrastructure, the roads and all that stuff. And then we're capturing the taxes that the city is getting, and I think the county, am I correct? I just want to make sure, not the school district. The school district will still get their money. But the fact of the matter is that money will be recouped multiple times over in a very short period of time by the revenue that's being generated. So I just wanted to be very clear on a couple comments that were made specific to these different pieces. And I guess I didn't mention, I'm sorry, one more thing on affordable. I'm all about bringing in affordable housing. We have had numerous affordable housing developers come to town. And by the way, just so you all know, again, typically what an affordable housing developer needs is TIF, tax increment financing, where we, if you will, would have to help pay to build it or buy the property or do something to help that bring that affordable option is. Now, we're not saying we wouldn't do that. We're not saying that that wouldn't be something as a city we want to do. We have to vote on that, but that's something we'd have to do. We'd have to discuss. The other piece, though, is that there's only a limited amount of money that is provided by the state and the federal government to provide for these affordable options. And frankly, most of that money, with all due respect to our big cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and some of the more inner ring suburbs, they get all that money. So by the time it gets out to Cottage Grove, though the Met Council and us have said, we want some opportunities, we know we need that in our community, we unfortunately are not getting those dollars. So the only option for us to do those kind of things would be to subsidize a residential development from an affordability standpoint. And I don't have that that is not something I want to do. Now, if there's a combination where we could do something with tax increment financing, I'm willing to listen. And we do have some developers that are talking to us, but nothing has come to fruition at this point. So as I kind of close, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Kambata, Councilmember Kambata. The other last thing, and Councilmember Olson, you brought it up. A lot of you out there said we're not listening, okay? I grew up in this city. I think somebody out there made a comment they've been here for 60 years. So for me, it's 58. So the fact of the matter is we do listen. We may not say everything or do everything that you want, but we are listening. And the reason I can say I know we're listening is because when we had the first development proposal come before us, it was extremely high density on this site, the whole thing. There was a very small piece of park property. And then when we said no, as a council, that's not appropriate for what we want along the river, they came back and they said, okay, well, we'll give you this little bit over here, then added to it, which was an area of that property which is really not conducive to, like, say, a boat launch. We said, no, that's not good enough too. Hence, we hired our consultant, which we were going to do anyway, but we hired our consultant to come up with the plan that's before us today. So the fact is this plan has changed dramatically from the first day that it was presented to us to what is before us today. And so I just thought I would share those comments. Again, it might not be something you wanted to hear, but it is something I think needs to be said and understood, that it is something that we have been listening and we have been doing, and we are moving forward with an idea, should the council approve this, and then it's up to the developer to come back with a development proposal, which we have not seen yet. There hasn't been an official development proposal presented to us. Mr. Kambata, did you want to add any other comments?
Yeah, so several weeks ago, Friends of the Mississippi River sent a letter over, I believe at the Planning Commission meeting. The city attorney addressed that letter. The reason the city attorney needed to address that letter is because it was asking the city to overstep its authority. In that letter, FMR states that no formal appraisal has been done on this property, which is probably hard to believe. No formal appraisal has been done by FMR. Anyone in this room can make a phone call and get a formal appraisal on that property. And that appraiser is going to deploy a principle of real estate that's known as highest and best use. And in terms of value for that land, highest and best use would clearly be high density. I can open up my laptop and I can identify 100 parcels in Cottage Grove where that same rule applies. So the reason there isn't a formal appraisal done on this property by that organization yet is because they already know the answer. And having that empirical data would be damaging for them. Compromise is kind of a sticky word. And that's what I see here. What's our next best alternative? This thing sat vacant for 5 years. It was for sale for 3 of those years at numerous different price points. Currently has no public access. It's run down, and unless you risk trespassing, you don't have access to the SNA at the river. If you're disabled, you're never going to see the river from that SNA. If you're able-bodied like me and want to go walk your dog, you're going to have to walk about 2 miles. I don't have time for that. So what I see here is a compromise. Ideally, I think the city would like to own the whole parcel. Ideally, I think FMR would like to see the entire thing become an SNA. But keep in mind what an SNA is. It's natural land. There's no trails there. There's no swing set. There's no boat launch. It's just dirt and prairie. Mississippi Dunes is an invasive grass species, buckthorn. The DNR only wanted 12 acres of this when the city talked to them. 12 acres that the DNR has been working to reclaim and bring into the SNA. If that tells you anything, the county could have purchased this thing over the last 5 years. The county owns land across the river. The DNR owns land right next door. They didn't want it. That's telling. What I see here is an additional 42 acres of preserved prairie land and 7 acres for recreation. And if you've ever been to Carpenter Nature Center, you can really appreciate what it means to have a paved trail or even an improved trail walking through that type of environment. I have young kids. I need a stroller or a wagon. I'm not dragging them through a field. So having a minimal impact on that land while still having a third access point to the SNA at the river, usership at the SNA is going to go up significantly just by having that access point. And again, this is all hypothetical. If that builder or any builder backs out because their appraisal says that the highest and best use doesn't fit single family 50-foot lots, There's a reason why you don't see large developments with 3 acres. It is not cost-effective for the developer. That's why you see the homeowner taking the burden. Individual wells, individual septic, that's $50,000. And in addition to that, now you're talking about a $300,000 lot, once improved, versus a $100,000 lot. So to the 8 or so neighbors that adjoin this property, your option could be a rail yard. The railroad has deep pockets. I'm sure they could buy it if the price is right. Maybe they missed their opportunity. It was listed on the, with the county when it was foreclosed on. They could have bought the sheriff's note and they could be the owner right now and we could be talking about a rail yard. Or it could be $1 million homes, except it's in a flyway. It's on a not very desirable section of the river. And it's adjacent to a railroad track. And for that reason, nobody who is going to spend $1 million on a home wants to live down there, away from amenities, away from access to transit, in not a top-rated school for elementary school. That's a huge driver in terms of who's willing to pay to live there. So what you have here is you have a compromise in terms of who would be willing to develop. You have a huge win from the city standpoint, in my opinion. 37 acres on the river, 2,600 feet of shoreline. I mean, this is something that probably prior to anybody who sits on this panel has been dreaming for an opportunity to get 30 acres. And here we are complaining that it's not 200, when the other option is 0. It could stay private, it could stay locked up, that gate could stay closed for another 20 years if Dave decides he doesn't want to deal with this. You know, we can't force him to sell. So what I see here is an opportunity to have access where there was none, both to the river for recreation and an additional access to the SNA. 40 additional acres of preservation of prairie land on the river. This is huge. Is it a home run? No, but it's a double. You know, I don't want to say this is better than nothing, but it's better than the alternative. And in terms of real costs, the legacy costs, as Zach said, once we own a park, we own it forever. You know, and you're talking about a 200-acre park, that's 1/4 the size of Central Park. Somebody had mentioned Central Park. For, you know, a population of 8 million people, an 800-acre park might make sense. But for a population of 40,000 people, a 200-acre park is really biting off a lot. And my take on it is the amount of due diligence that went into this, the fact that this has been 5 years in the making, and at any point, anybody with deep enough pockets could have come here and asked us to do something else with it. And we would have had to give them the same serious consideration that we're giving this plan, this master plan. So I understand that we've got 100 or so people who aren't happy about this, primarily rural landowners adjacent to this property. I can understand that you like how things are, you like how things have been. But if you wanted to sell your land to FMR right now, we would sit up here and we would give you the same consideration and the same respect and the same legal purview that anyone else would get. So if anyone else, any of the 8 adjacent property owners feels like their land would be better suited for prairie restoration, please bring us a proposal. We're happy to look at it. Thank you.
Council, any other comments at this point?
Mayor, I'm going to move that we adopt Resolution 2021-157 approving the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan as presented.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Olson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thiede. Any further discussion? I guess the only thing I'll just ask before I call for the vote is just for Jennifer, kind of what is, obviously, it's went through the Planning Commission. It's obviously coming before us right now. What is the next step? Just so the public is aware that's here.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council. The next step right now, obviously has been stated, the EAW is out for public comment. So any individual or organization is able to comment. It can be found on our main webpage. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. Click on the link. You'll find the directions of how you can submit any comments. You can read the detailed review of the environmental evaluation. At that time, when the actual comments are all received and that closing comment period ends, the city council will have it at their second meeting in January to make a decision in regards to the EAW. And that document then will be the governing document in regards to how that project could move forward and what mitigation efforts may be necessary. It is anticipated that as we near the end of that period, the developer may bring forth an application for a preliminary plan and a site plan approval at that time that the Planning Commission would have a public hearing on, and then would follow our normal process in which it would come back to your table. I don't have a specific timeline based upon the developer's schedule at this time.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that the public is aware of kind of what the next steps would be after this. So the EAW goes until the 30th, I think was mentioned. There could be some development proposal that comes to before the city, so to speak, not us yet. That'll be down the road. But there could be something presented, but it's not the time frame of whatever the developer. Okay, but we're giving them this as our concept of what we expect from a park standpoint, river access, all that kind of stuff. Okay, all right. Any other council comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. All right, next on our agenda this evening is council comments and requests. I'm trying to remember how I should do this now. I'll start with Councilmember Kambata. Do you have something you want to add tonight? Under council comments and requests?
I think everyone did a very good job tonight. From staff, from the onset of this. As a member of the Planning Commission, I saw the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan go through its various stages, and I'll echo what Justin said. A lot of due diligence went into this, and although you don't always like the outcome, every application gets the same due diligence and the same consideration.
Okay, all right. Councilmember Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple things here of note. The very first one is I would like to issue my appreciation to our very own Cottage Grove Police Department for their great response. We've had a couple issues happen here recently in the community, and they've stepped up in a fantastic way, as they always do, to provide protective services for our community. The work that these folks do is amazing, and we definitely owe them a debt of gratitude, and they have our support. So, Pete, please make sure that they receive those words on behalf of everyone up here. Next, a couple just kind of neat little holiday-related things. First, on Monday, December 6th, from 5 to 7 p.m., I would invite the community to come down and join myself and the Cottage Grove Masons. We're going to be ringing the bell for the Salvation Army down at Cub Foods. I'm a member of that organization, and we enjoy doing some good work, some humble work to give back to the community, and invite everyone to come down to Cub Foods here in Cottage Grove. And then last but not least, as we approach holiday time here and gift-giving season, one of the things that I like to do is remind people to help us to build our local economy one sale at a time. Shop local, keep your business here in Cottage Grove. Help us to have our brick and mortar businesses succeed, help us to provide jobs and opportunity as economic drivers for the community, and to increase our market share by percentage of the business that is actually done here. There's some very tangible, positive benefits to that, one of which is when you shop at a locally owned business, 68 cents out of every dollar stays in the community working for everybody. That includes payroll, taxes, charitable giving, purchasing, etc. So it's a really important thing that we can do, and it helps to make our community be strong and see our businesses be successful and viable. So I thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you. Councilmember Thiede.
Yeah, I got a couple things. One of the things I forgot there was that you did have on consent, we had on consent tonight was there's some ArcticWolf security software that our company actually sells. Obviously, I couldn't be involved in the sale to the city, but But I did take a look at it, and I talked to Brian based on my experience with the software, and I believe we'll see a little bit of a reduction in the price that you saw in the packet. So just as a note there. And then for the record on why I voted down consent, okay? And it was primarily it was just item G. And it was actually with that code, the only thing that I was really not in agreement with and wanted to discuss more was the council salary increase. And otherwise, I was okay with everything else, but I do want the record to show that the reason that I did vote nay on the consent was because of that one item of the council salary increase.
Okay. Councilmember Olson?
Thank you, Mayor. I will be ringing the bell as well, but I will be ringing the bell at Hy-Vee on Saturday as part of our Cottage Grove Lions effort to support the Salvation Army. So we will be at Hy-Vee from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. this coming Saturday. And we'll be in our Lions gear. We'll also have our Salvation Army aprons on, and we'll be ringing to our heart's content. So if Saturday is your shopping day, please make sure you stop by and say hello. And if Saturday isn't your shopping day, make it your shopping day, and then come by and say hello. Additionally, our Cottage Grove Lions are hosting our annual Santa breakfast, and that will be held at the Cottage Grove VFW this coming Sunday from 8 a.m. until noon. We will have pancakes, eggs, sausage, juice, coffee, milk. We also have a new addition this year. We're going to try some biscuits and gravy, see if people like that. And again, that is our Cottage Grove Lion Santa breakfast, not to be mistaken for the City of Cottage Grove Santa breakfast, which I'm sure the mayor is going to talk about in just a couple of minutes. So hope to see you at the VFW. The price to get in is $8 per adult, $5 for the kids, and we will have Santa there the whole time, so the kids can get their pictures taken with Santa, give them their wish list for Christmas, etc. Sparkles the elf, his assistant, will be there to make sure that every child walks away with an opportunity to spend some time with Santa if they want to.
What day was that again?
That is on Sunday.
This
Sunday.
This Sunday, the 5th. Ringing the bell Saturday, Santa breakfast Sunday, and then I believe River Oaks has the Santa breakfast for the city, which will be hosted the following Sunday.
The
Right.
12th.
So, Mayor, take it away and tell everybody about that.
All right, well, I was going to cover a couple of those. So as you mentioned about the Lions Santa breakfast, there's also going to be another Santa breakfast down at River Oaks. That will be Sunday, December 12th. So if you can't make one, or if you'd like to do both, which is what I usually do, because there are different meals and different things to do, like the sleigh ride and such. That is from 9:30 to 2, and it is by reservation only, so you do definitely need to make reservations for the River Oaks one. You do not need to make reservations to go to the Cottage Grove Lions. So if you're interested, you can reach out and contact River Oaks through their phone system. I wanted to thank everybody who joined me this evening out at lighting of the Christmas tree at City Hall and the Park High Choir that sang. Molly and all the public, the Parks and Rec group that helped, and Foreman that was freaking out because he wanted to make sure that the flip of the switch actually worked to get the tree going, and Santa and Sparkles, who was here tonight. It sounds like we had around 500 people out there, which is a couple hundred more than normal, but the weather was gorgeous, so I can see why. And we were able to do everything outside tonight, so it was kind of neat that we were able to do that. The other thing, though, I did want to mention, and some of us, actually, I think I don't think you were there that one night. The pop-up restaurants that they're doing down at River Oaks. There is a couple opportunities again coming up. Friday, December 10th, from 4:30 to 8. You do need to make reservations for that. And there's another one on Friday, January 21st, 2022. Hard to believe that already. That's another pop-up restaurant. People might go, what does that mean? Well, they're actually providing different types of meals. The last time I was there, I had the ribeye steak, which was absolutely amazing. He did a great job on that. I don't know what any of you guys had.
I had the pasta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Cajun pasta, amazing.
All
I
right.
also had the ribeye steak.
The ribeye, so
I
another,
think I got mine a little before yours.
yes, yeah, we won't talk about that.
You know, I was gonna be there, but then something came up, but I would've had the ribeye steak too.
It was very good, but the food is amazing. Our new chef is down there. We appreciate everything that he's doing, and Dennis and those guys are doing down there to keep that place going. But if you're interested, obviously make reservations, because you need to online in order to do that. And then one other item on Christmas is, as everybody is aware, we generally have the holiday train that arrives into Cottage Grove. But these last couple of years, due to COVID restrictions, the holiday train has not made its appearance here in Cottage Grove. They've opted last year and again this year, where they're going to have it like an online or a virtual experience, if you will. That doesn't negate, though, the importance of making sure that we provide for our Friends in Need food shelf. And so there's a couple options for you to do that. The target by for the Holiday Train Committee, right now there is some online auctions going on for baskets and such. There's also a target to raise $90,000. And some of that will obviously come from businesses. Matter of fact, CP Rail will be presenting a check, because they're normally the ones that kind of put this together. But there's also going to be what's called a Fill Up the Fire Truck event on, I believe it's Saturday, December 11th, at Hamlet Park. Let me just make sure I got that. Yes, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. So I encourage council, to get a chance that day, to stop down there and support that. And the goal is to provide items that would be needed for the food shelf. So whether you want to provide money directly, which is always good, that's great. But if you have paper towels, toilet paper, anything that's not strictly food related, any paper products, we encourage you to bring it down there and help fill up the fire truck. Again, that'll be at Hamlet Park on Saturday, December 11th, 2021. I keep having saying that now. And then lastly, Councilmember Dennis had made a comment earlier about thanking our public safety team. I do know, in somebody that does try to answer where I can, opportunities or questions out in the social media realm, there has been an uptick, if you will, in some types of crimes or things that are happening, not specific just to Cottage Grove, but it's happening across the entire metro. And frankly, and I'm not trying to jinx this, and I'm knocking on wood here, our events, if you will, have been much less than even to the city to our north here in Woodbury. But what I did want to say is the appreciation for our public safety team, because in the 3 incidents that I am very aware of, obviously they're very good about alerting the council when something is of concern to the community. We apprehended every single one of those individuals. Sometimes it took a little bit longer, but in some cases it took within 30 minutes on the most recent situation where there was a bank robbery. All I can ask that the public do at this point is be vigilant. Call the police if you see something. If something looks suspicious or something is not right, no matter where you're at in this community, whether it's a park or a business or your home or what neighborhoods, whatever, call the police, let them take a look at it, let them figure it out, okay? Because that's how we prevent these crimes from happening, is by alerting our public safety personnel so that they can be the ones to get involved. I've seen some comments out on social media about, I'll call it vigilante groups and things going through neighborhoods, and that is not our community. And we have a great relationship with our public safety department, with our community. I just want to make sure that the public is keenly aware that if there is an issue, we'll address it. They're already out there in great numbers from a public safety standpoint, but I also encourage you to keep your eyes open and please share with us. If you see anything, I always see at the airport, if you see something, say something. That's basically the same thing I'm saying here, and let our police department do their work. So that is it. Next item on our agenda is a workshop open to the public. We do not have one tonight, which on 14, a workshop closed to the public. We do not have one this evening. So we're now to 15, which is a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion by Councilmember Thiede.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Kambata. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.